from Sports Illustrated and Prime Videos, our buddy Albert Breer here. Albert, my goodness, lots to talk about with you. But does it feel like a lull right now, though? Does it feel like a little bit of a lull, or yesterday was such a burst, or what?
Yeah, I'd say this is like the way it normally goes, though, Rich. I mean, I think normally, the guys that get the value they want will sign quickly, or will agree to terms quickly. They can't sign until tomorrow, but they'll agree to terms quickly, and then you'll have teams resetting and the second wave coming, and a lot of times part of the second wave is there being some guys out there like the Vikings left tackle. The temporary left tackle there, Cam Robinson would be one of those names. Some of the older receivers, Amari Cooper would be in that group where maybe the market didn't quite materialize immediately the way that they want it to. And so they're waiting it out a little bit too. I think we're sort of there. And then of course, on the quarterback market, you have one big piece that has yet to fall into place. And I think that's holding a couple things up too.
Okay. So let's jump into Aaron Rodgers. Where do things currently stand with him, Albert?
Yeah, I know the Steelers felt pretty optimistic yesterday that they'd be the choice. The Giants have continued to make a push there, and I think as he usually does, Aaron is kind of private about his own feelings on this, and so this is really going to be up to him, what he wants to do. I had thought Minnesota's had a lot of creative discussions about what they're going to do at quarterback. I'd be surprised if it was Minnesota at this point. But I mean, I think for the Steelers or Giants, they want an answer at the same time. That's probably not the right guy to push for an answer. So, we'll see what happens. But I think it's really between those two, and only Aaron knows what he's going to do. And I think they both, present enticing situations for him.
So walk me through what you think he might be thinking. How does that sound?
Well,
as a setup.
Yeah, I mean, I think like proof of concept's important now. I think we're all sort of beholden to our own history. And he took a chance a couple of years ago on going to a Jets team that hadn't won in a long time and thinking I can be the final piece and I can make a difference. That is essentially what he'd be doing with the Giants, right? So does he want to do that, or does he want to go to a place that's established, that hasn't had a losing season in a generation, and that has a lot of stars that are ready to compete for a championship and have been in playoff games, and a lot of them haven't won playoff games, but there's going to be a sense of urgency there that's not just tied to Aaron Rodgers himself. It's that TJ Watt is going to turn 31 years old. It's that Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to turn 29 years old. Finally looks like they've got the offensive line right. They've got an experienced offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith there, who's made offenses work for different types of quarterbacks. There's a lot to like about the Steelers situation. At the same time, vengeance can be a factor, and the idea of maybe doing it for the Giants, right down, what is it, I-80 there in Jersey, from his old team, and going to a place where you can be the difference. I think there'd be some appeal to that too. So, if I had to guess right now, I might say the Steelers have a slight edge just because, again, it's the more ready-made situation. You're guessing less on what's going to happen there. But the Giants certainly, have their hat in the ring and have a really good chance at it too.
Listen, I think he and Daboll would mesh, right? And
Yeah,
I think obviously throwing to Malik Neighbors would mesh. Certainly, if third overall they don't go quarterback and go Travis Hunter, I mean that would be obviously somebody he would throw to. Right. And he doesn't have to move if he does really like the New York market. There is that. And I understand that, if there is a revenge factor with the Jets, the fact that he's sitting there in the building and look, I could do for them what I could have done for you if you'd stuck with me. But then you see the Steelers, and the Steelers are unlike the Jets in the way that the Giants are kind of like the Jets, where if Rodgers doesn't do it, the whole house is cleaned. Everybody's job depends on him. Not so with the Steelers. The Steelers do have a bunch of people who are closer in his age contemporary that you mentioned, like TJ Watt and Hayward and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Tomlin and him could vibe. And in terms of, revenge, look at who the Steelers play. I mean, it's the NFC North. He could go right back one more time in the NFC North for Old Lang Syne. They play the Jets in New Jersey. The Packers are, from what I'm hearing, in Dublin. You know what I mean? Like it could be a worldwide tour. The Vikings, the Dolphins, the Bills. I mean, the Seahawks as well. I mean, this is a big time.
Rich, you're talking me into it now. Like, I'm getting kind of excited here.
I mean, so if you're saying there's a choice for him, it's not like whether the teams are on the fence about bringing him in. These are his choices.
Right. No, again, only he knows. Only he knows. But like they're both all in to get him. Yes. Like, and they're both like optimistic about their chances, and they both feel good about the situations they're presenting him. And I mean, I think it's kind of interesting because are they both up a creek if they don't get him?
That was what my follow-up was, is what is the plan B for each team if they don't, one team is going to have to turn to plan B. What would it be?
Yeah, so like for the Giants, I think they would look at Russell Wilson. They had him back. They had him last year in for a visit. And then I think that the next, step would obviously be the draft as well. Now, part of the problem for the Giants is they have no way to control their situation. And let's say they only like Cam Ward, right? Like, which is where I think some teams are right now as far as who would be worth a top 5 or top 10 pick. They have no control over whether or not he gets to them. They would have to either trade up to 1 or just hope that the Titans and Browns don't go quarterback. And that's a tough spot to be in, so it could work out for them, but it might not. You certainly, I don't think, can rely on that as your plan. Hope isn't a plan, so I think that the Giants would have to find a way to backstop that with some sort of veteran quarterback. And I think regardless of what they do, whether it's Rodgers, Wilson, or some other veteran, and I don't know who that would be right now, I think that they would plan on taking a quarterback high. Now, it might not be with a 3rd overall pick if they wind up signing one of those guys. It could be like a Jackson Dart on day 2, but I do think they would plan on putting a quarterback in that pipeline. The Steelers are murkier to me. I would just say, like, there are some people that aren't keen on the idea of having Russell Wilson back there next year. And so could they do it? Yes. Could those fences be mended? Yes. There's just some stuff that happened at the end of the year where I don't know, like, how the Steelers are going to put their belief in that. And again, like, I like Russ as a player. He's accomplished a lot, but I'm not sure that relationship is in the best place and has been in the best place. And so, what does that look like if they are bringing him back? I think that's really murky. And the hard thing for them is they let Justin Fields go. So Justin Fields is now a Jet. And then I think, one of their plan Bs would have been Daniel Jones. I think Sam Darnold was probably always too expensive. Like, they like Sam and they wanted to take a swing on Sam. I don't know if they would have gone to the level that the Seahawks went to. I mean, but would they have gone with Daniel Jones if, like, the Aaron Rodgers thing fell through on Monday? I think they might have looked at that. So, I think they're in a little bit of murky territory if they don't wind up landing Rodgers.
Okay, there's lots of follow-ups here. What about Kirk Cousins, Albert? Where could he play into all of this? Obviously, tomorrow rubber has to meet road for cap compliance, and
yeah,
would he be available if a team flipped a draft choice to Atlanta, or is Atlanta really intending to hold on to him because Arthur Blank? What do you think? What do you got for me?
I think that's part of why they're hanging on to him. I mean, let's just start with what's out there logistically, which is his contract, $10 million of his money for 2026 becomes fully guaranteed on St. Patrick's Day. So that's a week from yesterday. So if they have him on the roster a week from yesterday, then $10 million for 2026 becomes guaranteed. And so now, instead of being responsible for $90 million, you're responsible for $100 million if you're the Falcons. So that's the real deadline in this whole thing. I think for Atlanta now, it's going to be, wait to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Wait to see what happens with the Steelers and the Giants. Keep an eye on the Browns. and then see if there's some sort of agreement where maybe you can buy a draft pick. In other words, like you can say, we will eat X amount of Kirk Cousins money for this year if you give us this draft pick back. So then that team might be getting Kirk Cousins for 15 million or 20 million, where it can kind of be one of these things that can help everybody. The Falcons get off the hook for some of the money. The new team gets its quarterback at an affordable rate. The Falcons get the draft pick, and then, Cousins gets a clean break. So I think there's some solution that could look like that if, the Giants or the Steelers are in a desperate spot after all this. And I don't think Cousins is a bad solution. The first year coming off the Achilles to the plant foot, that's a tough deal for a quarterback, especially one of Kirk's age. I think he feels like he's going to be in a better spot. And by the way, for those who missed it on Friday, last Wednesday, he went in and had a meeting on Wednesday night with Arthur Blank and basically told Arthur that I want to be a starting quarterback somewhere next year. So one way or the other, I want out of here. And it'll be interesting to see where that goes over the next few days, because I would think that Kirk's wanting the Falcons to work with him, whether it's by cutting him or by trying to find some sort of trade solution that could be created by the desperation of these teams.
Any idea how that went over with Arthur Blank? Albert?
Yeah, I mean, I think Arthur Blank just said to him in not so many words, we're going to do what's best for the Falcons. And I think part of it is they're looking at it and saying, there have been these teams that have had, quarterback injuries, and they've been putting themselves in really tough spots by not having depth at the position. And, we're responsible for $90 million anyway for the single year. So why not just pay the extra $10 million, and now we're responsible for $100 million over 2 years, but we have quarterback insurance. Now, I think the counter argument to that is, one, doing what's right for Kirk. And Kirk didn't know you were drafting a quarterback 8th overall, and he only has so much time left in the league. And, it's doing right by the player. That's number one. And then number two, are you creating a tough situation for Michael Penix? In other words, if Michael Penix has a tough first month of the season, which isn't impossible, you know what I mean? Like, say the Falcons schedule, say they have a gauntlet in that first month of the season, and Michael Penix is going to have to take his lumps. Like, are you creating a problem for your young quarterback by keeping the old starting quarterback on the roster? That's a factor too. So it's a very complicated situation. And, I think the best thing for everybody involved is for there to be some sort of clean break. I'm just not quite sure how it's going to happen yet.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. And in terms of following up for what you were saying about Rodgers' situation with the Giants and the Steelers, how that this is now the second time the Giants have gone for an OG quarterback. Stafford stayed with the Rams. Now, Rodgers is considering going to them or the Steelers. So my question is for you is where are you hearing about the draft? Would the Giants still take one? Is that something that they've told Rodgers would have to ask Joe Shane and Daboll and John Mara if he met with the owner, are you taking a quarterback 3rd overall, right? I mean, he'd have to ask that question. How has the quarterback carousel as it's currently spun affected the draft class, do you think, Albert?
Well, I'll say with the Giants in particular, I know one thing that they had sort of talked to Matthew Stafford about was the idea of the 3rd overall pick being able to help him, and that if they brought him in, then, all right, like now we can maybe use the 3rd pick on Travis Hunter, and maybe Travis Hunter can be the 3rd receiver, and you bring Cooper Kupp with you. And now we got Malik Neighbors and Cooper Kupp and Travis Hunter. Those are concepts that I know were at least discussed. The difference, I think, is that you could see Matthew Stafford being your quarterback for the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know if he'd commit to that, but that's at least conceivable. Where with Rodgers, it's probably a little bit less conceivable. And I don't think Aaron would necessarily be against the idea of having a young quarterback on the roster. I mean, I would say this, like as ugly as things got at the end in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love have a very strong relationship. Like I've talked to Jordan Love multiple times about this, about, how much he loves Aaron Rodgers and how much he feels like he owes to Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think it would have anything to do with like having to look over your shoulder,
right?
Because I think Aaron's only going there for a year or two anyway. I think it would probably be more what I was talking about in the first place, which is do you want, like, does Aaron want the team to use that asset on somebody who's going to help him right now? Like, I think that'd be more the question. And we'll see. But I do think, like, if they signed Aaron, then they'd probably take a quarterback. My guess would be somewhere in the top 100 picks.
And in terms of where the quarterbacks land, right? In the draft, you're hearing Cam Ward is high up as obviously the Titans if they want to go in that direction. There's Abdul Carter sitting there too, Travis Hunter, if that's you want to go for the unicorn there. Then you got the Browns who pick up Kenny Pickett. You got the Giants.
Yep.
And so, you mentioned Ward's name before. So is it a general sense now that I'm hearing, and I'm sure, you hear with your ear firmly to the ground, that this is Ward's draft?
Yes.
And Shedeur Sanders could go from anywhere in the top 10 to out of the first round. Like, what are you hearing about this subject matter?
So I think Cam Ward is like, again, like, and I used this term with you last week, I think, Rich, like, he's the guy you chase ceiling with. He's still inconsistent. He still has some growing to do. But he is somebody who has a high ceiling, and somebody who, when you pluck out plays, you can see, okay, he's doing some superhuman stuff. I'd implore anybody who wants to see it. A couple scouts told me this. Go to watch the Cal game, the Miami Cal game. They told me you see everything there, all the good, all the bad, like it's all there, right? So you're chasing ceiling with him, which if you're Cleveland or Tennessee in the AFC and you're contending with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud and all these different guys, like then maybe you do have to chase ceiling. But at the very least, that ceiling's there. I think with Shedeur, it feels to me a little bit more like Bo Nix. I haven't been able to find very many people, Rich, that think he's a first rounder. That doesn't mean nobody does. But I think, I would have said the exact same thing a day before the draft about Bo Nix. Like, where is he going to go? Well, Sean Payton, he may be a fit there, but nowhere else. And then Sean Payton takes him, So for Bo Nix, it wasn't about, proving to the league that I'm this superhuman prospect. It was finding the right fit. And ultimately he found the right fit and had a fantastic rookie year. I think that's the boat that Shedeur's in right now, where there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to look at him as a second or a third round pick based on his physical skill set. And for him, it's going to be about finding the place that looks at him differently and sees him differently and says, this guy is a fit for us in particular. It doesn't matter what he is for anybody else. He's a fit for us. Because you and I both know if he finds the right fit, if Shedeur Sanders finds the right fit and goes on and wins a bunch of games as a rookie, nobody's going to care how 30 other teams saw him at the end of April.
A few minutes left here with Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated. Every Niner fan I know is freaking out. Albert, freaking out about the roster remake here, and they know the number for Purdy's going to come, and they're putting it all together. Is Purdy going to be the guy with whoever's left? Is the window closing? What's your message to Niners fans, seeing what's happening, knowing what's happening, what could happen next? What are your 2 cents on that, Albert?
They found Deebo Samuel in the 2nd round. They found George Kittle in the 5th round. They found Fred Warner, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round. They found Brock Purdy in the 7th round. It's really hard to duplicate that. But, I mean, this is a team that has done a lot of stuff right over the 8 years that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have been in charge. And look like they made a real run at it over the last few years with the core that they had. But the reality of it is, if you looked at the roster and you looked how they were pushing money, I think at one point they had over $300 million in cap commitments for this year. That's without a draft pick on the roster. That's without signing a free agent to the roster. That's without, having some certain positions filled. And so, this time was coming. Could they have kicked the can down the road for another year or two? Maybe, but like this was the logical time to do it. And if you want real encouragement, here it is for you. The Buffalo Bills did this exact same thing last year. And the Bills, I think it was something like $65 million in dead cap they took on. They got rid of a ton of guys. Tremaine Edmonds was the year before that, but they got rid of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White and Stephon Diggs and Mitch Morris. And whoa, what are the Bills going to do? And you know what ended up happening was
Yes,
a great program carried them through. The Rams 2 years ago, same thing, right? The Rams 2 years ago, They ate all of this dead money. They traded away Jalen Ramsey. What are the Rams going to do? Well, you know what? It was a front office, a coaching staff that's made a lot of good decisions over the years, continuing to make good decisions, filling out the roster. And now what do you see? You see, the Rams and Bills in a good position going forward with clean cap and a full complement of draft picks. I think that's sort of where the Niners are. Now, can they pull it off the same way the Bills and Rams did? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think there's any question they've got the right people in charge to pull it off.
All right. And last one for you, Albert. You're the perfect guy to ask about what type of quarterback the Jets just acquired. And Justin, seriously, I mean, you've been following this guy forever. You've known, his entire journey, soup to nuts. Who did the Jets just acquire, and what is their plan for Justin Fields, do you think?
The right type of guy, first of all. Like, I think that's anybody who's around him knows that's obvious. Like the way he was been described in the Pittsburgh building was he was a Steeler before he ever became a Steeler. So he's square-jawed, military kid, like all of that. Like, so you're getting the right type of person. That's going to be, calling signals for you. And I do think, like, a lot of people in the Steelers organization would have liked to have kept working with him. It was just whether or not they were going to be willing to go to that level to keep him. Were they willing to go to $20 million a year and promise him the starting job and all that? That's where they weren't willing to go, but they wanted to keep working with him. And I know this, like, Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, he felt like he could do more with Justin Fields given some more time than he did with Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill got him to an AFC title game. So is Justin Fields ever going to, live up to what we all thought maybe he would be coming out with the 11th overall pick and all of that? Maybe not. But, I mean, this is a guy who I think will get better with experience, has gotten better with experience, and what everybody around him says is he's just got to play. Someone's got to let him play through it. And part of the reason why is he's got to learn to see the field better, see the field faster. Because, I mean, his experience in college was the first guy was almost always open. And, he's going through it in Chicago, and they fire his coach, and, he dealt with all different coordinators every year, and then he goes to Pittsburgh, and it's a new system again. I think, getting him into a position where he can settle in and be the starting quarterback for a little while, do him a lot of good.
Well, it's got to help that he's reunited with one of those guys who is always open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
not just one. Garrett Wilson's there. Jeremy Ruckert's there, too.
That's right.
Tight end.
And Ruckert was tweeting out, too. He's fired up. And again, like, so you bring a young contemporary into the young room after the OG was there, right? Mm-hmm. And see how this works out, and if you're going to re-sign Garrett Wilson, this is a way of basically saying, we see you. I don't know. Right. I kind of dig it. I kind of dig it.
There's so much you can do with him too. Like, you don't have to play offense a certain way. You can play offense. You can do different things with him, and utilize his athleticism in different ways. And I think all of that's a plus. Like, again, like, he's going to be a receptive learner. He's going to be somebody who's going to be good in the room. He's going to be somebody who's going to be great with his teammates. I mean, who do you hear nothing about? Who do you hear nothing from on getting benched and when he's 4-2? Justin, you heard nothing, right?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I think that says everything about the type of guy he is. So I think he's somebody who's going to be committed to becoming better as a football player. And I know this, like, a huge part of the reason why he went to the Jets is because he would have the opportunity to have some runway to start and be the guy. And I'm fascinated to see, how all that turns out.
Yeah, play like it's 2019. That's all I'm looking for.
That's right. You remember when he came out of that medical tent? You're going to get me fired up here, Rich.
No, I know.
He came out of that medical tent like Superman.
I know.
Threw that ball to Garrett Wilson for the touchdown.
He did in the big house, and it was the last time Ohio State beat Michigan. So
and then he didn't get to play him a second time because somebody canceled the game. So
I knew if I was going to go there, he would go there, and we would just basically say, tune in tomorrow. On tomorrow's show at 1 Eastern time. Be sure to do that, Albert. I will. I've got Bryce Underwood here, so you can see, the future, future Novembers.
Is this part of his NIL deal?
No. He's showing up for nothing. Please. You are the last person.
We have snacks.
No, I'm just returning volley. I'm just returning volley. That's all I'm doing.
Honestly, the last.
I never said anything about anybody else paying players. I want my school to pay players.
By the way, I want the Jets to draft Jack Sawyer. I would like the Jets to just keep going, man. Just get them all. Get him because
maybe Caleb Downs in a year, or Jeremiah in 2.
I don't know if the Jets are going to draft that high if Justin Fields performs, Albert.
We'll see.
Thanks for the time, sir. Always great, as always, making us smarter. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich.
You got that's Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's what's up.
That is indeed. See, I asked him, what's up? And by the way, he just immediately got on the phone.
Oh.
Good for him. He's gone. As a matter of fact, you want to take it? He's already off. I think he's already dropping off.
Yeah,
he's frozen because he dropped off.
Out.
I saw him. He just picked up his phone.
It's like, oh.
And by the way, I always appreciate information, men and women who come on this show when it's all going down and they never look at their phone once. I greatly appreciate. I notice it. By the way, I pick up on everything. I'm very astute.
Very few of them.
I'm very astute as well as influencing. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.